Hi, welcome back to Night After Night. You know, in this country, it's debatable who the king of talk shows is, Carson, Letterman, Arsenio. But in the United Kingdom, there's only one king of chat, and we've got him tonight. Please welcome the host of Tonight with Jonathan Ross, Mr. Jonathan Ross. How you doing?
Hello, Allan.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the States.
Well, thank you for having me here.
And now you're shooting your show here, and it's broadcast live now?
Yeah, we're doing it live back to London from New York, and our show goes out in the UK at 6:30, so we have to do it here lunchtime, which is interesting and fun. It means we kind of work half a day, basically.
So now, and you're shooting at the infamous or the famous Ed Sullivan Theater.
Probably a bit of both, yeah. The infamous, famous Ed Sullivan Theater in New York City, which is...
And haunted...
by the ghost of Ed.
By the ghost of Ed. But did they tell you about the trap door?
No, they didn't. No, what is this?
There's a trap door in the center of the stage, and it leads down to an alley that goes to a bar on another street.
Now, someone mentioned that, and I thought that was just wishful thinking, because all the crew are saying, let's go downstairs and find this trap door. And I can't really understand the big appeal, because it's quite easy just to walk out the normal door and go to the bar. But then, obviously, Ed had his little quirks, and that was probably one of them.
Well, I think Jackie Gleason is the original one who started that, because he used to shoot the old Honeymooners.
Yeah, well, see, we've never had that in the UK, I don't think, the Honeymooners. That's a whole part of your culture which has totally passed us by.
Are you upset about that?
Not in the slightest.
Is there a part of American culture that's passed you by that you would want? Or does all American culture make at least one stop in London?
The United Kingdom now, really, we are like, I think, a little satellite part of America now, frankly. You know, it's time we stop kidding ourselves. You know, I think that's the problem. A lot of people are very upsetting at the moment. I think it's because they finally realise that we're not really a world power anymore in any field, you know, even entertainment. You know, we have one or two pop stars, you know, but that's it. And they all come from you now. It's all you American guys. And that's one of the reasons why we've come to do the show over here, is because, you know, this is like the mother lode. This is where you come to mine the stuff in its raw, chunky state, as opposed to England. We maybe get Morgan Fairchild comes over once every 2 years.
But that's a big deal over there,
well,
isn't
that was the part of American culture we'd rather have missed out on, would have been that kind of stuff.
Now, how are you being received here? How are the audience
well, we're getting an audience, I guess, of about 1/3 from the UK who are coming over, tourists, and we're saying, do you want to come see the show? And 2/3 Americans. And I think it's going okay. I mean, I speak very quickly, so I'm trying to slow down. I mean, I didn't realise just how different the two languages were, American and English. And also, I think the audiences are slightly, which surprised me, but the American audiences seem more prudish. You know, if I make a joke which is rather risque, or, I guess, by your terms, off-colour, you know, I do feel the audience physically move away from me. Whereas in the UK, they tend to celebrate that kind of thing. And I'm amazed because we're near 42nd Street, which is this kind of like mecca for pornographers. Not that I've visited it, of course. I've just gone past very quickly in a cab one night. But, you know, surprising to find that there's that double standard here.
Well, could you give us an example of a joke that you told that didn't go over well that might be a boffo joke in the UK?
Well, I mean, you know, just kind of like, you know, sexual entendre, perhaps. If you're flirting with a guest and you do a joke, you know, I don't know. See, I don't want to lose your friendship here, you see. I might say something that would immediately... But we were chatting about crack on the show the other night, in a light-hearted way, as you do. And I think that didn't really hit the mark it might have done. I had the comedian Dennis Leary on, and we were sending him out to do some gag stuff for us about New York City and the myths of the city that we in England and the UK hold, as opposed to the reality. And he said, do you want me to find you a restaurant with crack? And I said, no, find me one with a crack section and a non-crack section. And which I thought was quite a light and pithy thing to say about probably your major social problem. And the British guys in the audience laughed, and the Americans all thought I was being cruel, I guess.
How did you get started in this talk show?
Well, I was working behind the scenes. I was a kind of a guest booker on another talk show on the same channel many years ago, which was... Channel 4, which is the kind of... It's a young, fun channel, I guess it's...
How many channels on the dial there?
We just have the 4.
Okay.
That's it's a very embarrassing thing to admit. We have colour and sound, though, you know, they're kind of... They're not too bad. But we have 4, and we now have sort of cable stuff as well, which isn't as glamorous or as exciting as yours. And I was working behind the scenes, and I just thought, like many people do, hey, I could do that. And then...
You could do what?
Host the show.
Oh, host the show.
You know, as all your team said to me when they came in, they said they could all do your job. And I said, yeah, sure, but just don't, you know, give the guy a chance.
Some people do have that attitude, but we cut them loose right away.
Yeah. That's a nice word for sacking, isn't it? That's right, fire them.
So how did you get from research into hosting your own show?
Well, we came, I had a partner, we got together and we said, let's come up with some show ideas. It wasn't really my ambition to host the show as such, I just wanted to make a lot of money, essentially, which is a far more noble and immediate ambition. So we said, how can we do that? And the only way you can do that is by coming up with show ideas and owning them and producing them. And one of the ideas we came up with of many was an irreverent talk show, loosely based on the Letterman mode and even the Carson sort of model, which we've never had
You don't get Letterman over there?
They tried it out. There were 10 weeks of Letterman was tried out on my channel, Saturday nights, and it did pretty well, but I think there's a reluctance for people to accept an American host doing what they figure an English guy could do. You know, I think that's the problem. And it's such a shtick thing, you know.
Does the humour work? Does Letterman's type of humour work?
For me, certainly, and for a lot of people, I think it really would, but they didn't give it a chance. I mean, they showed it as a weekly show, for a start. It only went out on a Saturday night. And they showed, like, one from the first year, one from the third year, one from the 8th year, and it was all over the place. And obviously the gags and his whole style have grown, you know, and changed enormously. And these shows, it just felt so disjointed watching them like that. But they were very, you know, very good.
So what did you want to, you know, how did you break the mold? That people say you broke the mold of chat shows. What have you done differently in your mind that makes you successful?
I think it was a mixture of irreverence, basically. I mean, we didn't sit down. You know, England very much so suffered from the kind of Merv Griffin syndrome of people coming on, which Arsenio Hall does so admirably now, of I don't know whether you can say this, but ass-licking, I guess, would be the phrase that I would look for.
I think that's, you know, there's no cultural gap there.
No cultural gap there.
That's a universal
It's a universal, it's what chat shows really are about a lot of the time. And I don't have a problem with doing my fair share of ass-licking, you know, I mean, it goes with the territory. That's something which I'm prepared to do, but within reason, you know, and so you want to talk about someone's new film or book, that's great, because that's why they've come on the show, but you should also talk about aspects of their personal life or find out a bit about them, and maybe confront them, maybe try and shake slightly, try and get past the superficial image that they present to the world always, and I guess we did some of that.
More like maybe a Larry King who gets more in depth, but in an entertainment kind of way?
Yeah, that's, I guess, would be a very flattering way of putting what we so clumsily did.
All right, we're going to take a look at a clip. Do we have time to show this clip in this segment? Mm-hmm. We're going to take a look at a clip of you with Cher on Tonight with Jonathan Ross. Let's take a look. We'll come back and talk about this.
Now, when was the first tattoo? Because I do find it's a very interesting subject, the idea of marking your body in some way. When was the first one you had?
1972.
And why did you do that? Because a lot of people I know, they get really drunk and then have a tattoo by mistake.
Yeah.
Was that a similar situation, or?
No, I believe that, you know, when I did it, it wasn't a very popular thing to do. It's not as popular as now. And I just believe that there are some people who find it beautiful and some people who find it appalling. You know, I mean, some people can look at it and be horrified, and some people can look at it and find it beautiful. And I'm okay with both of those kinds of people.
Now, you've had quite a lot done, I know, and presumably, are you going to keep having them done? I mean, do you have an idea of when the cut-off point is, how much body to cover? Or?
No, I honestly wish I hadn't started so early, because tattooing is so refined now, and a lot of my tattoos I don't really like that much, but, you know, they're with you forever. I can imagine when I'm like a 75-year-old woman with a tattooed body, it's going to be really funny, and my, you know, flowers are down to my kneecaps or something.
Where are the flowers now, if I may ask? At the moment. So before we move on from this, it's supposedly, and I haven't had any done, and I don't think I would, not because I have anything against them, I'm just a bit of a coward, and I've been told they're very, very painful. Now, is that true?
No.
So it hasn't bothered you at all?
No.
So I couldn't ask you where the most painful place would be?
Close to the bone. Any tattoo that's close to the bone, anything on fat is not very bad at all. Anything that gets close to the bone is really uncomfortable.
But for you, then, they must all have hurt, because there's nothing of you. You know, you are.
No, on your butt, that's not a big deal. On your arm, it's not a big deal.
I bet it's a big deal for the guy doing the tattoo.
Well, he didn't even seem to notice it. He was more like a doctor.
And then when you go in and say, I want one on my butt, do they pay you for that one?
No.
Or? Okay.
Has anyone surprised you in an interview that you didn't like? It kind of threw you and difficult to get out of?
Yeah, there have been a couple of times. I mean, because the shows we do have always been live. I mean, occasionally we pre-record one as live, but normally they go out straight away live, and which is more fun, I think. You really have to think on your feet. But we've had a couple of incidents where the liveness maybe hasn't worked to our advantage. One particular example was a show where we had Sarah Miles, very talented actress and a very nice woman on the show, and she had, beforehand I'd met her, I'd done a kind of pre-show interview with her and chatted about things.
You do the pre-show interview?
I used to, not so much now. Now we do 3 times a week. It would be too much work, but I used to when it was once a week. I used to try and do that. And I'd read somewhere that she was indulging in some kind of odd Californian theory, some sort of therapy kind of thing where you drink your own urine. Yeah. That was part of the course. It contains things that purify you. And I'd asked her this, and she said, yeah, but I don't just drink it neat, I mix it with ice and tonic, which I thought was quite, you know, was quite a neat way of getting out of someone accusing you of being totally insane. You know, you show that you haven't completely lost touch with the real world. And I said, can I ask you that on the show? And she said, well, I'm not sure. And I said, well, that's a nice line, and it will, you know, people will like you, and don't worry. So she said, fine. And then when we came to the show, I didn't realise that backstage she'd been having terrible nervous problems and didn't want to come out and didn't realise it was live and stuff. And when she came out, halfway through the interview, I thought, put it to her rather charmingly and said, well, Miss Miles, I believe that you drink your own urine. And she came back with, well, Mr. Ross, and I'm changing the word now for your benefit, but she came back with, Mr. Ross, I believe you eat your own crap. And it was like, may well be true, but don't, let's not,
And what did you say?
I think I just said, well, thank you very much for being with us, Miss Miles, and there is a car waiting for you immediately. There's I don't think there's a neat way out of something like that, because it wasn't kind of funny, and it wasn't relaxed, and it wasn't like banter.
Have you thought of better lines after that? I mean, like maybe a new potato line?
I've tried to blank it from my memory entirely. It was only when you just asked me that it came up, but no, I don't dwell on those sort of moments.
Okay, we're talking with Jonathan Ross, the king of talk in England. We'll be right back after this.
All guests of Night After Night are ensconced in the palatial opulence that is the Mobley Hotel. Yes, the Mobley, 16.5 deluxe units, located in Short Weasel, New Jersey, home of the bottomless cup of Tang. It's the Mobley, now with soap.
Hi, welcome back to Night After Night. I'm here with the king of chat in UK, Jonathan Ross. And how are things going at the Mobley?
It's a fine establishment. I was a bit surprised to find I was sharing my unit when I turned up, but it's okay. Nice, very forward-thinking place. I think the topless soup kitchen is something that will catch on in a big way.
Were you shocked to find out that Dennis Mobley had passed away?
Dennis Mobley's dead?
Yeah, he's gone. He's left.
And you're taping a show with that knowledge? You're still going ahead and working?
Hey, America, the show must go on.
So Halloween now will be like Dennis Mobley-ween.
Oh, yeah, it'll be a lot of little kids are dressed up like Dennis Mobley.
Going around town scaring the hell out of people, yeah.
You don't celebrate Halloween over there, do you?
We celebrate Mobley Day, but Halloween, no, that's never really caught on, didn't have the impact. I don't know why, it's a shame. Well, I personally, yeah, I celebrate Halloween. We have a party at my house every year. But I think what it is that last year they tried to start doing it, I guess because it's the crass people saw a way of selling more merchandise. So, yeah, we'll finally shift these pumpkins, which in England we have no use for, I mean, it's a whole industry that didn't have any way of getting rid of it. We had pumpkin mountains over there, which we used to give to the East Europeans, and they have big Halloween celebrations. But kids went around last year trying to go trick-or-treating and just scared the hell out of all the old people because they had no idea what they were meant to do. And kids they said trick-or-treat, and they're going, sorry? Shut the door, and then something horrible comes through the letterbox, maybe. It was just a very depressing time of year last year.
Princess Di has said that she's your biggest fan, or I guess she's your most famous fan.
I imagine so. It's hard to find someone more famous than her, but...
How did you find out about that she watched?
Well, it's hard to know whether that's true or not, because that was something that the British tabloids reported, and as we know, they are, I guess, they're not really celebrated for their... Honesty and
unlike the American tabloids.
Well, the American tabloids are better. I mean, I'm not talking about the National Enquirer, but New York Post and that, at least they still report news.
Yeah.
I mean, in England, the front pages are normally some sort of bit of celebrity gossip. That makes the front page, and it's like, it's a bit depressing. But the Princess Di thing, when we launched this series, which was about a year and a half ago, there's only one other talk show in England that's on 3 nights a week, so obviously the press tried to build up some kind of rivalry, which doesn't really exist.
What is that talk show?
That's called Wogan, named after the host, whose name is Terry Wogan.
Yeah, I saw that guy over there.
Yeah, he's an older fella than I am.
Yeah.
And a fatter fella than I am. and a balder fella than I am. But he has this show, he's been doing it for years. And he's a nice man. I met him, he's a nice enough man. And there's no rival, they're totally...
Have you been on his show? Has he been on your show?
No, I've invited him on. But I stood in for him a couple of years back. I sort of hosted his show when he was off on one of his many, many holidays. And I did that for a couple of weeks, and that was fun. And that's why my slot got moved earlier, because it was successful, and they said, because our prime time really is early evening. It's kind of like from about 6:30 through till about 8:39.
Well, because England shuts down at 11 o'clock, the bars close down.
It shuts down about 9:30 this time of year, It's very cold out there, and what with all the pea soup fog and all that kind of thing.
Now, let's get back to Princess Di. So, have you invited her on the show?
Yep, invited her on many times and get very nice replies back, all finding different pleasant ways of saying no. I think really she's right not to do talk shows. I mean, I know, you shouldn't be saying this because it's my bread and butter, but, I think it does cheapen people appearing on talk shows a little bit from certain walks of life. I mean, I hate to see politicians on talk shows.
Do you feel cheapened being here tonight?
I feel very cheap and used by you. But, I'm enjoying it.
Oh, good. I'm enjoying it, too. Now, Princess Di, the fact that she might like the show, maybe that's not so hip.
No, well, I don't know. I think it is... Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really like the idea of being hip, particularly, to be honest with you, because hip only lasts like a year. you know, maybe 6 months, and I like the idea of maybe being around just a little bit longer. I mean, I was very hip when the show first started, and then, especially in the UK, you have this backlash, which is really quite vicious normally, and then you weather that, and then you become hip again. And then you're out of vogue again, you know, and it just seems so silly. You know, and you think, well, the show I'm doing now is as good, if not better, than I was doing a year ago, but it's not in fashion, so it doesn't seem to be as popular, which is just dumb.
Now, what do you want to do when you end the show? Do you see an end in sight? Do you want to do it for 5, 10 years?
Well, it depends. I mean, I always think, you know, the key to TV, really, being successful on TV, is longevity, I think. You do admire someone. I admire Letterman for doing it for 10 years. I admire Carson for doing it as long and as successfully as he has. But I think, you know, I just want to do it for as long as, A, as long as I can get paid an unfeasible amount of money to do it, and B, as long as I'm still enjoying it. You know, and if it got to the stage where really you just think, I do not want to talk to these people, and you got cranky and you know, just horrible at it. I mean, I know Letterman's cranky, but, you know, that's in an endearing way.
Who do you admire most in the States of all the talk shows?
I would say Letterman. I think it's Letterman without doubt. You know, I quite like Arsenio, you know, in an ass-kissing way, as I said. You know, he's quite. It feels like there's a party going there, and it's fun, and he's obviously keen.
Has he been on your show?
No, I would certainly speak to him. When I came over here initially, there was an English press thing saying that, you know, because a couple of channels here have been talking to me about maybe doing selling the show to the UK, to the US, sorry, which I can't really see, because that's really, you really do need another talk show over here, don't you?
But it would be different. It would be unusual. I mean.
Yeah, well, it would be English, I guess. That would be the selling point, I suppose, and maybe it would work.
Beats the hell out of Benny Hill, you know.
Well, I dispute that, because Benny Hill, I think, is top man. You know, I mean, it's you know, it's old, sad, old material, but there you go. You know, there's a market for it, and it's funny. Yeah. Often, you know, and I think it's hipness again we're talking about there maybe. But they describe him in the UK press, they said in America they're talking about him, and like you are all talking about me, sure, you're talking about him as though he's a cross between David Letterman, Arsenio Hall and Oprah Winfrey. And when we had the meeting with this guy, I think he expected me to walk in with like a flat top and gap teeth and really big hips, and he was surprised to find that I was just a normal individual, just as you are.
What's coming up next for you? Any projects when you go back to the...
Well, we carry on with this show live, and maybe I'll do some more documentary series, I hope. I do these series of odd American filmmakers normally, and I was thinking of doing Tim Burton next. He was keen to have us do a show on him. We did some profiles of people like Russ Meyer.
You're a big Russ Meyer fan?
Huge Russ Meyer fan.
Common Law Cabin?
Fantastic. Mudhoney.
Oh. Faster Pussycat Kill Kill?
Oh, yeah. Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens.
Okay, we could go on. Dueling Russ Meyer films.
You know what? We have just bonded, haven't we? That's what just happened, and what a beautiful, messy moment it was.
And what a perfect time, because we got to go now.
Now listen, will you come back to the Mobley for some drinks with me this evening?
I can't. I really can't.
Because all the kids there miss you when you don't come by.
Okay, all right. I will come by, but it's hard because I'm an American and Dennis was an American.
Yeah, it's sad. It's a very sad day.
If you want to see Jonathan Ross here in New York City, he'll be at the Ed Sullivan Theater. There's how you get tickets through November 8th. You call 212-764-0571, and you will have a great time. And hell, you'll be in the Ed Sullivan Theater. That alone is worth the price of admission.
Go and see the spot where Jackie Gleason used to go and get completely off his face.
Okay. Jonathan Ross, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'll be right back after this. So you should...